Okay, let's kick things off. Imagine this. A 13-year-old, right, working on a homeschool project back in 2024.
Uh-huh.
But it's not your standard project. The goal, to build a fitness app that hits a billion-dollar valuation by 2030.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite the ambition, straight out of the gate. $1 billion in what, 6 years? On
Yep,
a homeschool project?
exactly. It sounds almost wild, doesn't it? And that's what we're really digging into today. We're
Uh-huh.
looking at this app, Muhata Fitness, and trying to unpack this pretty bold valuation estimate.
Yeah, based on the projections and the info that's out
We
there.
want to figure out how plausible is this. We'll look at the app itself, the market, and of course this really interesting story of the young founder.
And the market context is definitely important here. The whole fitness app world is, well, it's booming.
It really is.
Projections for 2030 are massive. Some estimates are like USD 23 billion, others go way higher, maybe over 120 billion globally.
Huge numbers.
Yeah.
What's driving that?
Well, it's a few things, really. People are generally more health conscious these days. Plus, almost everyone has a smartphone, right?
True.
And apps are getting smarter with the gamification, making it more engaging. And, the whole shift after COVID, more home workouts, that demand seems to be sticking around.
Makes sense. So, okay, Mohata Fitness. For listeners who haven't heard of it, what's the core concept? What does it actually do?
So at its heart, it's a web app. And the big idea is what they call micro workouts.
Micro workouts.
Yeah, like short bursts of activity. The app even has this default timer suggesting like a 30-minute break to get you moving.
Interesting. Fits into a busy day, I guess.
Exactly. And they've layered on this gamified element with their own currency. They call it Muhata,
Okay.
plus a community angle, the Muhata sphere.
So trying to build engagement beyond just the exercise itself. What about tracking fitness, the basics?
Yep, they've got that, a customizable tracking system. And they use a fitness rating scale, 800 to 3,000, apparently. Plus benchmarks for things like, max push-ups, 100-meter dash speed, that kind of stuff.
Got it. So the foundations are there, but with these unique twists, the short workouts, the game currency. Now, you mentioned we've got some public info to go on.
Yeah, not a huge amount, but enough to get a picture. There's the description of the app itself, detailing the features, and they're active online.
Whereabouts?
They have an X profile at Muhata Fitness and a YouTube channel. Seems like they're pushing workout challenges, maybe even doing their own podcast bits.
So they're putting themselves out there, which is definitely necessary for a new app.
Absolutely. You have to make noise, especially in a crowded market.
Right. And it is crowded. We mentioned the big players, MyFitnessPal, Fitbit, Peloton. How does Muhata plan to stand out? What's their unique selling proposition?
I think it comes down to a few things. That micro-workout model is key, aiming at people who feel time poor. The Muhata currency adds a different kind of reward loop. And then there's this whole Muhata universe narrative.
Tell me more about that.
Well, they use these thematic names, the Alana Muhata, Mount Muhata. It sounds like they're trying to make it more of an adventure, less of a chore.
Gamification plus storytelling.
Exactly. Plus, they talk about focusing on balancing antagonistic muscles, which sounds a bit more holistic, and building community in that Muhata sphere. So it's trying to be supportive, maybe fun.
I can see the appeal, especially the micro workouts and the narrative layer. Now, the elephant in the room, the 13-year-old founder, how big a factor is that story?
It's potentially massive. I mean, a young founder story is inherently interesting, right? It grabs headlines.
Yeah, people love an underdog or a prodigy story.
Exactly. Think about the buzz around companies like Canva, how their origin story helped. It can attract media, maybe crowdfunding, even early investors who like backing something different.
It gives it a human angle you don't always get with tech startups.
Definitely. Though, let's be realistic. A 13-year-old, however bright, isn't going to build a billion-dollar company alone.
Right. There's the practical side.
Absolutely. You'd expect, or rather you'd need, adult co-founders, mentors, advisors, people with experience in business operations, legal stuff, raising capital. The vision might be young, but the execution needs experience.
Okay, so factoring all that in, the unique app features, the growing market, the founder narrative, the need for support, let's get into the valuation journey. That billion-dollar goal by 2030, you've mapped out some stages. Where are they likely now in 2024?
Right now, it's really just notional value. Think homeschool projects starting to get legs, maybe USD 10,000 to 100,000.
So seed of an idea territory.
Pretty much. It's based on the work done so far, maybe a tiny user base of friends and family, no real revenue, no formal valuation process at this point.
Okay, fast forward 2 years, let's say 2026.
Yeah.
What needs to happen?
By 2026, you'd hope they're in a proper seed stage. Maybe they've run a successful crowdfunding campaign, got some initial buzz perhaps, 50,000 users, maybe starting to see a trickle of revenue.
And the valuation then?
Could be somewhere in the range of USD 5 million to 20 million. That's a big jump, yeah. But it reflects hitting those early milestones. It would likely be based on a high sort of pre-revenue or early revenue multiple.
Like investors betting on the future potential.
Exactly. Maybe a 50x multiple on very early revenue, something like that. It's all about traction and promise at that stage.
Okay, still a long way to go, but a significant step. What about 2028, assuming things keep moving?
2028. That could be the growth stage. Let's say they've raised a proper venture round like a Series A. Maybe they've scaled up to around 1 million users.
Now we're talking real numbers.
Right. And generating more substantial revenue. At that point, the valuation might be in the USD 100 million to 300 million range.
Based on what?
Likely a more conventional revenue multiple, maybe 20x to 30x their annual revenue. That's more typical for a company showing solid growth.
Okay, so the path is becoming clearer, potentially. Now, 2030, the target year. The billion-dollar question, you've got a few scenarios. Let's start with the base case.
Okay, base case for 2030. We're looking at maybe USD 500 million to 1 billion valuation.
$500 million to $1 billion. What
Yeah.
gets them there?
Solid, consistent growth, maybe reaching around 10 million users, generating decent revenue, say USD 40 million annually, and commanding a reasonable multiple, maybe around 15x revenue.
So strong performance, but not necessarily world-conquering yet. What about the optimistic case?
Optimistic case, things really take off. Valuation could be USD 2 billion to 5 billion.
Okay, now we're really scaling.
Yeah. This means much faster growth, maybe 20 to 50 million users. Revenue pushing towards USD 80 million, maybe even 200 million.
And a multiple, or something else.
Could be a higher multiple, maybe 25x, reflecting that stronger growth. Or this could be an acquisition scenario. A big player sportswear brand, tech giant sees the value and buys them out.
Right, an acquisition could definitely accelerate that valuation. Okay, the final frontier, the unicorn case. USD 5 to 10 billion. What did that take?
Unicorn status.
Yeah.
That needs something special, like truly explosive viral growth.
How many users were we talking?
Massive scale, maybe 50 million, maybe 100 million users globally, and likely diversified revenue streams, not just the app itself.
Then evaluation.
You'd be looking at a very high multiple, perhaps 50x revenue, or just a valuation based on strategic importance and market dominance. It's about becoming a major force, a household name in fitness tech.
So user growth seems to be the absolute linchpin across all scenarios. How does Muhata actually get tens of millions of users?
Well, that gamification piece could be huge. The Muhata currency, leaderboards like Violata Muhata, setting benchmarks like 100 jumping jacks. It taps into competitive spirit.
Making it sticky.
Exactly. And creating buzz. Imagine Muhata world records or shareable challenges like this claws and jaws thing they mentioned. That drives organic growth. The micro-workout model itself has broad appeal, especially, like we said, for sedentary workers. Then there are expansion opportunities. Think schools, the K-12 market is big, or workplaces, tapping into that hashtag work-from-home fitness trend.
Integration possibilities.
Right. And don't forget the founder story. That narrative can keep generating interest and goodwill.
So multiple growth levers they could potentially pull. You also mentioned a few strategic routes to hitting that billion-dollar mark. Can we just recap those quickly?
Sure. 3 main paths we see. 1, steady organic growth, get to 10, 20 million users, maybe use AI for personalization, build out content like tutorials. They mentioned hijacks tutorials on YouTube.
Okay, path 2.
Acquisition. A bigger company like Adidas, Google, maybe even Peloton buys them. We've seen acquisitions like Runtastic before.
Makes sense. And path 3.
Achieve true unicorn status.
Yeah.
Massive user growth, 50, 100 million plus. Diversified revenues, become a dominant platform.
Each with his own challenges, I imagine.
Oh, definitely. And it's crucial we don't gloss over the risks. This is incredibly ambitious.
What are the main hurdles?
Competition, obviously. Established players have deep pockets. Funding is critical. They mention a crowdfunding goal, maybe 100K to 500K to start, but they'll need much more later.
Right. Venture capital down the line.
Probably. Then there's execution risk, especially with a young founder needing to build a team. User retention is key, making sure people stick around after the novelty wears off. Features like the Daily Streak and the Muhata Sphere are vital there.
Any others?
Potential regulatory hurdles. Data privacy is always big, and if they target schools, age-based restrictions and child safety regulations come into play, lots to navigate.
So definitely not a straight line. High potential, high risk. It's a fascinating story to watch.
It really is. And it makes you wonder, what is the future of fitness tech? Will we see more niche apps like this challenge the big guys?
Mm.
What does it really take for a startup to achieve that kind of exponential growth? Is it the idea, the timing, the story, the execution, or all of the above?
Yeah. And are there other projects out there right now, maybe seeming small, that have that hidden billion-dollar potential? What makes one idea take off while another stalls?
Definitely food for thought. It's not always the most obvious ideas that end up changing the game, is it?